All right, so I'm on this 2016 Dodge Grand Caravan. It's got a 3.6 in it, and she said that it was misfiring. I guess she took it to AutoZone or somewhere and had the codes read. And I went ahead and just drove it, and it's got a P0301, which is misfire on cylinder one. It actually says pending, which is kind of weird because the way that it's running, I don't know if she had the codes cleared, and that's why it says pending or what. But it's I just took it for a little test drive. It's running real rough. Definitely got a cylinder misfire. So I think on these, number one is in the back passenger side. So I'm gonna go ahead and go out there. I think today, instead of using a scope or doing any kind of testing like that, we're just gonna go old school dirty and switch the injectors around. Not the injectors, the coils around. Put number one, number two, vice versa. The reason being is I think, just from experience, it's probably likely a coil. So I'm just going to switch number one and number three around, and then we'll take it for another drive and see if we get a P0303, which would be a cylinder on misfire 3. And then if that's the case, we'll know that we need a coil and go from there. So I'm gonna try not to bust out the scope or any kind of fancy tools. We'll just do this old school and see how it goes. All right, so I just wanted to verify real quick before I start tearing the car apart which one is number one. You can see here on the diagram, number one is right here. So the engine's facing this way. This would be the passenger side of the van. So 1, 3, and 5, all the odd are on the back side, and then the 2, 4, and 6 are on the front. So depending on which code you have, if you got 301, 302, would be which cylinder you're going to look at. We got a 301, which is cylinder 1, so that's the back side of the passenger, the first cylinder. And all I'm going to do is just take the air hose off and stuff and get back there, and we'll switch these two coils around and see if the misfire moves to number 3. Now, if you have 2, 4, or 6, I got bad news for you. You're going to have to remove the upper intake manifold off this engine. It's covering the coils completely, so it's a big pain. But we got lucky. We're on number 1, so we just got to remove a few hoses, and we'll be able to get right to it. So on these Chrysler engines, 3.6. So here's the diagram in case you need it. If you have a different code or whatever, that's for the Chrysler 3.6 Pit Star engine. So anyway, we'll get back over to the car and start pulling apart and do our thing. All right, since we're going to go to the back. Cylinder 1's back there. What we're going to do is take this air breather hose off. Looks like it's already been broken or taped at one time. But there's not too much to take off on this. Take this off, set it off to the side, and then we're going to get this hose off in that box, and then we should be able to get to it. So I'm going to get a screwdriver real quick. We'll take that intake hose off. Pretty straightforward, rather worm clamp. Oh, we're gonna need a study. Seems like it's been a Mopar kind of week this week. Was doing a lot of Hondas last couple months. Now it's turned into Chrysler Fest. Kind of unfortunate because my most popular videos are GMs. Alright. So I believe you have to take this off, and it's just one connector. Then you have a, looks like a 10, no, that's just a clip. So it's just one connector, and then I think there's one more clamp back here, and then this box will pull out, and then that'll give us clear access to the coils. So I'm going to pull that out real quick, and then we'll get a light back there, and I'll show you what's going on. Alright, so I got this little air box off. All it is, which is what I thought, you got that connector right here, and then you have a clip right here. Just pull this out from the clip, and then all it is just these little rubber grommets. So you just pull up on this box and kind of angle it out, and it comes right out. So that's all there is to get to the back coils on this. which is pretty sweet considering if you look right here on the front, they're completely covered. You have to pull this upper intake off to get to it. So now we're back here. You can see you got access to all 3 coils actually. This is the one we're going to go after. This is number 1. So this is the front one, passenger side, rear. So all we're going to do, disconnect it, and we're going to disconnect this one. And all we're going to do is get a 10 millimeter socket, take these bolts out. We're going to swap these 2. We might pull. All right, so I believe these are 10 millimeter. We'll get back here and take this off. And it is 10 mil. Nice long one. So we're looking at it. I'm just kind of checking over the boot. Make sure there's nothing obvious with the boot. I don't really see anything. Sometimes you'll see maybe a tear, or you'll see like a discoloration with it. And I don't see anything. It's definitely the original coil. I tell you what, before I take this one out, I'm gonna go ahead and pull this plug, spark plug, and just take a quick look at it and make sure nothing's going on with it. So that should be a 5/8 spark plug. So I'm gonna go ahead and get the tools for that, and then we'll pull it out and take a look. It's always a good idea to check the spark plug, even if you suspect a coil. Let's take a look at this thing. Alright, definitely the original plug. Gap's not super bad. Gap's not super bad on it. Porcelain looks okay, so we're going to drop it back down in there. It's actually a little bit wet too, I think. Might be a little bit wet. If it's a little bit wet, that's an indication sometimes it's not firing. So we're going to drop this back down in there. I'm going to show you a way to drop this back down. Another old school trick on dropping this back down there without closing the gap up or messing it up. Alright, this is another trick that's been around for decades. You know, on the older cars, you could just hand put the spark plug in by hand. On these cars, you got to drop these things way down into the manifold here. You don't want to just drop the plug down in there, and because you have a chance of closing the gap up. So take some hose, put the plug in there, and just put it down there gently, and give it a couple turns with the hose. And once that starts a little bit, you should be able to pull the hose out without the plug, and then you can go ahead and put your socket down there. So that's off now. So go ahead and start it. So I'm going to go ahead and run that spark plug back down, and then we're going to switch those coils around. So all I'm doing now, I'm just going to pull that other coil out, and then we'll switch them. I already got it unplugged. So this is actually a number 3 cylinder here. And we're just going to do the old switcheroo. Now you take your the one that you suspect is bad, which in our case is number 1, and we'll slam this in number 3. And what we're going to do now is tighten down a little bit. Because obviously, you know, it's not guaranteed that it's a coil. It could be an injector. It could be a compression issue. I don't think it's a compression issue because the engine runs fine. Other than that, there's no noise. It's just, you know, one of the more common things. These coils go, you know, down in that cylinder right on the heat, and they don't have the easiest life. So usually when you got a misfire, it's one of the first things I always check is the coil. Now it's usually a little bit easier switching the coils around. This car, on the back side, it's not that bad. If it was the front side, I would probably try to tap into the coil wire somewhere outside of the manifold and put a scope on it and see. But since it's the backside, it's easier to get to. Only takes literally 2 minutes to pull this intake off. We're not going to go through the hassle of doing all that. So anyway, I'm going to put the intake back on. We'll take it for a ride and see if the misfire moves over cylinder 3. Alright, so I took it for a little drive, not even a half a mile probably. And you can see here, we got cylinder 3, misfire, active. So our little science experiment worked. It's got intake air temperature circuit 1 high. I probably had the key on when I disconnected it. But anyway, our little science experiment worked. The misfire did move to cylinder 3. So we know we need a coil. So I'm going to go ahead and get a coil, and then we'll put it in. As you can see here, I got the intake back on when I took it for a drive. You definitely want to do that. And then, like I said, I didn't even tighten the clamps. I just took it half a mile. I'm pretty confident that's what it was going to be. So, yeah. So anyway, I'm going to order a coil, and we'll put it on and take it for another ride and see how she goes. All right, I got it back apart. Only took me about less than a minute to get it apart. One thing to remember when you're putting these back in is you don't forget that you did change the coil to the number 3 or whatever misfire you had. So you don't want to change, I know it's common sense, but you don't want to change your number 1 coil if you switch these around. You want to change the one that was bad, if that makes sense. Sometimes you can be in a hurry or whatever. And oh, I got a misfire on cylinder 1, and then you changed the wrong coil. Just remember, if you switched it, you want to take the one that you switched it with, leave that one alone, and then change the other one. So we got the new one in. It's bolted up, 10 mil. Now would be a good time to change the spark plugs if you were going to do it. This customer doesn't want to do it yet, so that's fine, whatever. It would be the ideal time, but since she doesn't want to do it right now, we'll do it later. It's not a big deal to get back down to this point anyway. But if you are doing this yourself, now it would be, and this car's got a little over 100,000 on it, so it would be a good time to change the plugs. But she opted not to do that this time, so that's fine. Just keep in mind, though, if you're down this far with it and you're doing your own, this would be a good time to do it if you haven't done them recently. So, got the new coil in. I'm going to put the intake back on, and then we'll go take it for a shake, and hopefully there's no misfires. She runs good, so I can pick back up with you when I take it for a ride. We'll clear the codes too before we leave, and I don't know, I'm pretty confident, 99.999% confident we fixed the problem. Obviously we should have. So I'm going to put the intake back on. We'll take it for a quick ride. One quick note I'll make about this air box. These are pretty ignorant on these Mopars to get back in. I have found that if you spray that inner gasket with a little bit of WD-40 or whatever you got laying around, it makes it slide back in a lot easier. These things are just a little bit ignorant from the factory, but if you spray it down a little bit of WD-40, it should slide on pretty easy and then snap in. Got those little, it has to push down in the back and snap in on the grommet, and then you have the clip in the front, and then put your air intake back on your other thing, and then we're ready to go take it for a ride. Alright, we're back at Hoopties headquarters here, and I just took the little truckster out for a test drive. Ran perfect. I cleared the codes before I left, so we'll just do a quick read of the codes. Should be no DTC, so nothing's popped up. Runs perfect. So this one's good to go. I mainly wanted to make this video. I know. I mainly wanted to make this video to show you that even on a newer car, it's 2016, so a 3-year-old car, and you can still use some of the methods that mechanics have been using for decades to diagnose some of these newer cars. It wouldn't have been feasible if it was one of the front, 2, 4, or 6 cylinder, just because you have to pull the manifold off. But with this one being an easy access, it made sense just to do it. Plus, I wanted to make a video and show people that you can still fix some of these newer cars with the older methods. You know, everything from putting the spark plug down the hole with a hose, so you don't damage the spark plug, to switching the coils out and seeing if the misfire moves. You know, some of those old methods still work on today's newer cars. I mean, obviously you have to grow and adapt as a mechanic to all the new stuff, but sometimes the old school ways still work. So this one's good to go. Code did not come back. It runs great. So I'm going to ship this Hoopty out and get on to the next one. I appreciate you watching. Please check us out on Facebook or YouTube, depending on where you're seeing this at, and vice versa. I'd appreciate if you subscribe to the YouTube channel. And yep, that's it. So have a good day. God bless, and we'll see you on the next one.